So you're playing against and you do a 10 pull and you get 5-star Xilonen. Now, what do you get with Xilonen besides the person who's going to unalive Malika if she breaks the bike again? Well, Xilonen is a geo-wielding sword user who is a phenomenal healer and buffer for almost any team. And in this video, we're going to look at the basics of Xilonen. So I did do a video yesterday talking about Xilonen versus Kazuha, and that was kind of like a get me over video because my parents had just visited town. They're gone. Everything is great. So now it's back to streaming and video. So I'm going to be streaming again. Now, Xilonen's normal attacks are going to do physical damage. They're pretty normal. She does do a backflip with her charge attack, but there's nothing really special about them until we look at her skill. When we use her skill, she's going to do an instance of geo damage rushing forward, but you're going to notice that she goes into Night Soul's Blessing form, and we're going to have these 3 triangles right beside her. These are her samplers. And if you look closer at the samplers, you'll notice that they are the color of our party members, being Electro for Veressa, Farina being Hydro, and Geo for Xinyun. Okay, if your party member has a Geo, Anemo, or Dendro character, it will not turn the sampler over to a different color. It'll stay yellow for Geo. So you have to make sure, depending on what you want her to do, what you want Xilonen to do, to have her in a party with at least 2 elements that are not Geo, Dendro, or Anemo. This is going to be Veressa and Farina in this. So once we've used her skill, if we have at least 2 of these samplers that are changed to not Geo, not yellow, then whenever we do our normal attacks, it is going to charge our Night Soul's gauge on the side. It is going to shred the enemy of the resistances of the elements of the sampler. So in this case, Electro, Hydro, and Geo, because it can't shred Anemo or Dendro, it's going to treat it all like Geo. This is going to make the enemies weaker to Veressa and Farina, and Xilonen is not going to make them weaker to Xinyun. This resistance shred lasts a very long time. So you're able to get multiple elements shredded, and it's going to last for a very, very long time. If we have less than 2 elements that change the sampler, so if we have an extra Dendro, Geo, or Anemo, and we only have like 1 element that's not one of those 3, then the samplers are going to look like this. If we then use her skill, it is going to increase her normal and charge attack damage with her skill. It's not going to actually charge it up to do the resistance shred. All of this information is found in her very first passive that makes this work. Now, her burst also changes what it does depending on the elements that you have in the party. If we look at this first being with Chiori, Xilonen, Xinyun, and Farina, so we don't have 2 or more of the samples changed over, it is going to do an instance of geo damage and it's going to do extra pulses. The damage of this is going to be based on her defense. If we swap back to Veressa, Freyr, and Xinyun and Xilonen having 2 or more of the samplers changed over, her burst is going to do something different. It is still going to do that initial burst of geo damage, but then it is going to heal your on-field character. Only your on-field character. This healing is based off of her defense as well. Now, her constellations do change this, but we're not going to be talking about constellations in this video. So as you can see, Farina and Xilonen are going to go together very, very well because Farina is going to enjoy the Hydro resistance shred, even if you're not technically using her as an off-field damage dealer. But she's still going to enjoy that. She's very much going to enjoy the healing aspect that comes from Xilonen whenever you are running her in a team with the samplers turned to where you can do healing with Xilonen. So if we look at her second passive before we get into artifacts and weapons, whenever you fill the Night Soul's gauge, it's actually going to give her a defense buff. So as you can see here, she has 2200, roughly 2200 defense. Whenever we do the full gauge, it's going to go up to 2500 or over 2500. This is from this second passive, which is important because her healing is based off of her defense as well as a lot of her damage. Now for artifacts, you really have 2 to 3 artifact sets that you're going to be running Xilonen on. And we're going to kind of go in a weird order. The first one that we're going to look at is going to be Archaic Petra, which is only usable if you have another team member in this party that can use Cinder City. So for example, Sitlali. Sitlali, it is much more important to have Sitlali on Cinder City, but if you're running something like Arlecchino, Sitlali, Xilonen, and Benny, then you're going to be running Sitlali on Cinder City, and then you're going to be running Xilonen on Archaic. What Archaic's going to do is going to increase your geo damage bonus, which is okay, but then if you create a shard, if you create a crystallized shard and you pick up that shard to make a shield, whatever the element of that shield is going to give a party-wide damage bonus. So if we make a Pyro shield through Arlecchino and Crystallize, when we pick that up, we are going to be giving Arlecchino a 35% pyro damage bonus. If you are not running Xilonen in a team where you need to have Cinder City on somebody else, then Cinder City is her best set. Gonna give her some energy, great, cool, awesome, but it's also gonna give your party a damage bonus based on the elements involved in a reaction that the holder causes. So again, the crystallized reaction. If we hit an enemy that has pyro on them, cause or crystallized reaction is going to give the team a pyro and a geo damage bonus because those are the two elements involved in that reaction. Then of course you do have something like Husk, which is going to mainly be a defense stack set just to make her heal more. That's really all that Husk is going to do. It's going to be there for a little bit of damage, but it's mainly going to be there to increase her defense so that way she's going to heal more when you're running her with like Farina. Now for weapons, of course you have Peak Patrol Song, which is going to be her best. It's going to give her a ton of defense, and it's also going to give some damage bonuses involved in its passive. If you do not have this weapon, you can use Freedom Sworn, which is Kazuha's signature weapon. If you want to do damage and defense, you can use Chiori's signature, which is going to be Araku, which is going to be very, very good for her. You do have something like Favonius. Always look at Favonius. Favonius is most likely always going to be an option for any character that you're going to try and look at. You do have something like Mist, you do have something like Skyward, but if you don't have any of those, you can of course use the Natlan craftable sword, which is going to get up defense, and then upon using your elemental skill, it's going to get up defense even more. So this can be very, very good for Xilonen as a free-to-play option because you are going to be increasing the amount that she's healing whenever you're running her in a team that allows her to heal. Now, Xilonen is a phenomenal support character, especially with Farina. Now, I did take Xilonen out of my normal Dia team for Shin Yun because I went Plunge Dia, but that's also because Dia loses damage when gaining a shield because she loses HP because of Beacon's passive. There's just this whole weird thing with that, right? But Xilonen is phenomenal. You can use her in so many teams. You can technically even use her in the Chiori, Alhaitham, Kuki, Farina team that I run. Technically, she could be better than Chiori. You're going to lose less team damage, but increase Farina and Alhaitham's damage, which is really interesting, but only if you have Peak Patrol Song on her. There's a whole, that team is just an amazing team that only works with very, very specific weapons and people. But technically she would be better in that team than Chiori if I wanted to increase Alhaitham's personal damage further. But I'll make a video about that later on. Now that is going to be it for this video. Kuki has green hair. I have lavender hair that didn't stay lavender for very long. Like, it's already fading. So I'm probably going to be going back to either pink or green. And I'll see you in the next one.